delighted to bring this conversation with Raven, who is part of a team of 5 music industry professionals who established Women Connect, which is a networking collective for women working within the creative industry sector. She is also part of the UNICEF Music Group with some of the bosses of the music industry, collectively using their resources and knowledge to raise funds for children who are in need. Although Raven is really young, she's had quite a good experience throughout her career, working in Manchester, programming for 5 UK arenas and theatres before moving to London and becoming a promoter assistant, having worked in programs such as Somerset House Summer Series, working with Björk, Lauryn Hill, Tyler the Creator, and a lot more. We'll discuss a little bit about her journey in the music industry, things she did before that, and also some really interesting writer requests from artists. We are not naming names though, but they are fun. So without any further ado, here's Raven. Raven, the second part of Women Connect. Welcome to I Like Networking. I finally got to speak to you.
Hello, thanks for having me. Sorry for the delay.
That's all right. So before we get on everything, can you just tell everyone who you are, where is it that you're based, where you're from, because that can be different now during COVID times, and what is it that you do?
Okay, so yes, my name's Raven Twigg. I'm originally from Grimsby, up north in the UK. Relocated to Manchester for 6 years. Had a bit of a stop off in some other countries. Was basically avoiding adulthood, and I'm now based in London, working for a live music promoter. So yeah, I just assist promoters in getting national tours together, routing them, putting them on sale, all of that good stuff, right up until the point of the show on the night, making sure everything goes smoothly and just, getting to enjoy live music, really.
Amazing. So can you tell us one of the worst work experiences you've ever had? And this can be like a moment in a job, a situation, an internship, an interview, anything.
This is quite funny actually, because people always joke that I must be around 40 years old because of the amount of jobs that I've actually had. I'm only 26, but I've worked in so many different areas, and when I saw this question might come up, I was like, oh God, what is the worst experience? And so many of them were bad, but all had silver linings. And I think the one that comes to the top of my head was that I was a raspberry picker in Australia for 5 months, where all I did was pick raspberries and had to put them in punnets, and I would get paid per punnet, and it'd be like 52 degrees Celsius. I am like so bad in heat anyway. And yeah, it's got to be the worst experience I've ever done. However, it did better me. I met so many people that I wouldn't meet ordinarily from so many different cultures and backgrounds that I've never come across before. And yeah, it was an experience. We were all in it together. And yeah, it's made me who I am today.
Well, you lasted for 5 months. That's impressive, honestly.
Yeah. I had to do 88 days for a visa, and I ended up staying 101 days because I actually quite liked the money by the end of it, to be honest. But it was fun. I mean, the bugs weren't fun. The sunburn wasn't. But yeah, other than that, raspberry picking.
That's incredible. So you mentioned that you had quite a few jobs. Were they all in music, as you know, except the raspberry one, or did you have sort of like a curvious path, let's put it that way, to get to working in music?
Yeah, I've had a bit of a strange path. Like I just said, I spent some time in Australia. While I was there, I was working for a watch shop. And I used to basically run the online content for their watch business. I should just do a disclaimer. I actually can't tell the time on an analog clock. So I used to have to like Google what watch faces should look like and things before posting them out to people. And I just had to take all these pictures of watches that I know nothing about. I did that for a little bit. I also worked for Netflix while I was out there working in the translating department. So I used to have to get quotes from translators for different languages, which was very interesting. That was also just a little interim job that I did for a little bit. But then back in the UK, I actually landed a job with a marketing company in Manchester. And I thought it was something that I wanted to do. I was quite excited about it. It felt like it was my first real salaried job. And to be honest, I really just didn't fit in. It was the first time I'd sort of left the music world within Manchester, which was all I really knew. And I didn't realise how much I depended on music for conversations and like-minded people. And I really struggled. I stayed 3 months, but in that 3 months, I'm not embarrassed to say that I was signed off work with anxiety because it was I just couldn't face it. I just couldn't face going in. The company wasn't bad. The people weren't bad. We just weren't compatible. And that's when I ended up applying for the job that I'm now in London. While I had that month off, I was like, this isn't for me. I need to figure something out. Music's what I love. It's what I keep resorting back to it. So, I applied for a job in London and here I am 2 years later.
That's amazing. I mean, I spoke to Alex, who is, according to her, your best friend. So I hope you feel the same. Otherwise, we might have a family drama in this podcast. But yeah, she also told me that she suffered a lot from anxiety. So I guess you could talk to her about that. And I think it's probably more common than we think, and we shouldn't be ashamed of speaking about it.
No, definitely not. It's something that I've always been quite open about. I find it easier to deal with it if I can, talk about it openly. So I think everyone should. It's not an embarrassing thing. Like you said, most people go through it. And I think as well, especially working in music, there are a lot of very highly stressful situations. You're dealing with high profile artists. So if you didn't feel anxious at all, then, I think maybe you're a little bit of a robot. There's always going to be something that's going to throw you a curveball. So yeah, it's natural to feel that way.
And you went to Manchester, you were working in music. When you came back to London, Did you know anyone here? Did it help you knowing people in Manchester? How did you get your foot here?
Okay, so my foot in was that there was a part that I've actually missed where I worked at Manchester Arena for on and off for about 4 years, working in customer services, and eventually ended up basically programming the venue. So I used to hold the diaries for Manchester Arena and 4 other venues across the UK. And I used to speak to promoters that way. So I used to be on the other side of what I'm doing now, where I was the diary holder. So my foot in the door really was just, I think I mentioned that I was leaving Manchester Arena to go to this marketing job, and a girl who works at the company I work for now just said to me, look, there's this opening coming up, have a look at it and see what you think. And my immediate response was, I'm not moving to London. I don't want to be in London. I've never had any interest in being there. I love being up north. It's where my roots are. All my friends are here. And I saw the job and I was like, that is actually my dream job. And I feel like I am more than capable of doing it. So I just applied and I sort of just got my foot in the door that way, really. But it all just started being on a 0-hour contract, working on customer services at Manchester Arena. It wasn't anything fancy. I made sure that I got on with the right people and helped out where I could and, did the best job that I could, even though it wasn't one that seems like it's a very important one. But, it paid off. I'm proud of how I got into it, actually.
No, I think that's amazing. And it's my first internship. I always tell this to people. I had the best advice of my career, and my boss at the time told me, look, whatever you do, no matter how small it may look to you, it is really important for the rest of whatever you're doing to go on. If you're working for a big company and someone tells you to pay a check at the bank, you need to pay that check. So do it. to the best of your ability, because that will help you throughout your career. And I think that's probably what you did, which is super wise.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, like, people take for granted that they just only try to schmooze the right people, but you never know who that person is, like, and who they're going to be one day. So if you're just kind to everybody and, you know, helpful to as many people as you can be, it pays off. It really does. You just never know who you're going to be sat next to one day in an office. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we should all try to be as kind as possible to other people, because the world is already unkind enough as it is.
Yes, definitely.
So that's amazing. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do on your job? Because one of the things we discuss here a lot with the like networking community is what jobs actually mean. So what is it that you do? And if anyone would is interviewing for a position like yours, what do you think they should know?
Okay, so my job title is actually promoter assistant. So I assist the managing director of my company. And on a day-to-day basis, I'm basically getting availabilities from different venues. So, you know, if I've got an artist that needs to go on tour in November 2021, then I'll go out to those certain cities where they're wanting to tour, see what venues are available during that time, put together some sort of tour routing, and then we put together an offer. So, you know, it depends on the ticket prices and things like that, to how much an artist can get paid, how much money we have to spend on marketing to promote the show, things like that. And then, it comes up to promoting it, selling as many tickets as you can, filling the venue for that artist. And then on the night of the show, I would basically just be, you know, even organising guest list, or making sure that certain people have access where they need to. Just making sure things go smoothly as possible. For somebody that's interviewing for my job, I'd say that one thing you should be aware of is that it's very hard at the beginning to feel like you belong, because me, as we've discussed, coming from Manchester, I didn't really know anyone in London already. I mean, I spoke about a girl who had tipped me off for the job, but we weren't, you know, we just used to email. I didn't know what she looked like. We weren't friends as such. We just emailed and communicated through for work purposes. And I think at the beginning it's worth knowing that people have existing relationships, and they've been building these relationships in the music industry for a very long time. And to come in as an outsider, it's not going to happen straight away. You have to sort of work at it a little bit. And go to as many like networking events as you can. They don't have to be the mundane, put your name on your chest and walk around and shake hands. There's so many different ways to network these days, which is obviously what Women Connect is about as well. But I think it's just worth just keeping in mind that you're not going to know everyone to begin with, and that's okay. It will happen one day. You just have to keep working at it.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I remember, because I used to be a music manager, right, having this conversation with one of the bands we worked with, and they were saying like, oh, look at that person over there, like how are they playing this house and we're not, this venue. And the manager of that other act was a friend of mine and said, look, it's a ant job. Little by little you build a house, like it takes forever, like you guys just arrived at the scene, it's not going to be overnight, and it's I think it's the same for the people working in the industry in a way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's so many different awards and different like ceremonies that go on just for people that work in the industry, like aside from the Brit Awards and all those things. Like aside from that, there's things that you'll feel quite excluded from because you didn't get invited or you weren't acknowledged for a certain thing. But like you said, it takes a long time to sort of build those relationships, and for people to realize that, okay, you are an active part of the industry now and you're somebody that I can rely on and I can come to. So it's like anything, it takes time. I've only been in this side of the industry for 2 years, so I'm still quite fresh in it. And obviously a year of that has been spent in my house, so I can hardly meet people that way. But yeah, definitely, it's a challenge to begin with. Yeah.
So how did you meet Alex, and how did they come to you to start Women Connect? What was your sort of,
Yeah, Alex and I met when I moved to London, actually. So we sit next to each other in the office and just met as organically as that. But Women Connect came about, it was actually an idea that Alex and Bree had, and Bree is 1/5 of Women Connect. There's 5 of us in total. So 3 of us work at the same office as me. That's Alex, myself, and Shan. And then there's also Bree and Becky. And I think Alex and Bree had a conversation about what they wanted to do, and sort of, had come up with this idea that we could put together networking events and maybe raise money for charities and things like that. And then Alex brought it to Shan, and then I joined the same company, and then we all just spoke about it together, and it just birthed from that, really. I think we've done 5 events before lockdown hit. One of them was in Manchester. The rest of them have been in London, because we want to try and acknowledge that not everyone is based in London. And yeah, we've faced topics such as mental health and period poverty, and we've had spoken word artists. We've had lots of acoustic sessions. And it's just about bringing people together in a bit of a different way. It's for the creative industry rather than just music, but I think sometimes naturally, because the 5 of us work in music, it does end up becoming quite music orientated, but we try to avoid that. We do a lot of stuff for women in tech. We're doing an event with a local artist next week, actually. So we're trying to just sort of broaden our horizons and do other things. But yeah, I just met Alex through the office, and the rest is history.
That's amazing. I love that both of you found connections through work. I think that happens actually a lot in the creative industries, and people always say you shouldn't work with your family and friends, but it seems to happen a lot in our hood, basically.
Yeah, definitely. But I don't know anyone else in London other than those people that I've met through work, because I'm out at events and gigs most nights. Most of my friends are at those gigs and events as well, because that's just what we do. So sort of, you don't really have a separate work and personal life. It's all just sort of one messy blur into one. So yeah, I love that most of my friends are sort of in the same industry. It makes things easier to talk about, and people understand your schedule a bit better. But yeah, it's cool.
That's great. I think some people actually struggle with that, with not having a separate work life.
Yeah.
Is it easy for you to find a balance, or is there no balance at all?
I think at the minute there's more of a balance now, because I'm made to stay at home and can't go out to these gigs. So that's when I realised that actually, it can be quite troubling to have all your friends at work when you're no longer able to go to work. So that's been quite hard. And I do think, maybe my opinion's a bit blurred because I've not been in my normal working life since March. But I think when you're out at so many gigs a night, it definitely does have its toll, and you just want to have at least one night in where you can spend it with your housemates or with your partner. But it just gets it is very blurry, and it is hard work, and I don't think that it's sustainable to do it your entire life. But I think while you're young and you're sort of enjoying the excitement of being out at gigs, and you just sort of have to learn to say no, I think, sometimes, so that you do have that balance. It's definitely not healthy to put all your eggs in one basket and exhaust yourself with work. But yeah, it can be a good thing. But yeah, it has its negatives too.
I agree. I think everything is, it's good to have things at different stages in life.
Yeah.
You can call me in a few years, Raven, and we can talk about how it's going. Because I used to be, it's funny because it was the same, I was out all the time, because also a lot of deals happen in the evening.
Yeah.
So I spoke about that on my episode with Alice Silver, who's also a music manager, originally from the US, but now based in Berlin. But for a long time, she was in Argentina.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't think I've made ever a deal on the daylight. You know,
No.
it was always in the evening. Always that's when you meet people, and you know, when you go see other people's acts and you meet the other artists, etc. It's amazing, but it can be quite brutal on your health.
Yes.
So
definitely.
I think but you have to love it, otherwise it's almost impossible. And I think you have to be young as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's no age limit on it, but I think your priorities shift, don't they? When you know, if you meet somebody and you settle down that doesn't necessarily work in the industry, or, you know, you want to start a family, of course you can do both of those, but you do have to prioritize one or the other at some point. Whether it's, you know, saying, oh, do you know what, I'm not going to go to that gig tonight because I'm going to two later on in the week and I want to see my son tonight, or, you know, whatever, your priorities shift. But yeah, definitely, if you've got no commitment, this doesn't mean it's not an age limit thing, but if you've got no other commitments and responsibilities, then yeah, you can just throw yourself into it, and it's a luxury to be able to do that.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
But moving on to talk a little bit more about your job, I would like you to tell me, what is the thing you like the most about it? And what is something that you actually spend a lot of time doing that you didn't anticipate you would?
What do I like the most? I honestly really do like seeing the venue fill up with people. I think that comes from my like background of working in an arena, like the biggest arena in Europe. Just seeing like 21,000 people come together for one night to see like they've all got one thing in common, and it's that they enjoy this artist's music. I think that's incredible. Like there's no, like, for me that tops it. I just really love that feeling. And what's something that I do that I didn't anticipate? I never anticipated that I would eat Pret for lunch and for dinner.
That's amazing.
Because I hate Pret, and I, like, no disrespect for people who like it, but I can't stand it, and I still end up in there like 3 p.m. having a late lunch because I have like had too many meetings and it's run over, or I'm there running and getting one before I run into a venue. Yeah, no, I never anticipated I would eat so many Pret sandwiches.
I get you. And I don't know if you know this, and it might cause rage with people because it's not the most popular attribute that I have. So one, I am plant-based, and two...
Me too.
Oh, amazing. And two, I hate coriander.
Me too.
And everything that's vegan on Pret has freaking coriander. And I'm like, dude, just don't put coriander on it. Just
it tastes like soap.
Yes, exactly.
It's horrible. Yeah.
So basically all vegan food on Pret is something with hummus and coriander. And it's like, surely we can do something better than that, right?
Yeah. McDonald's announced that they're working with Beyond Meat this week. They're bringing out a vegan burger. Wow.
I mean, that's incredible. But
while we're on topic.
Yes. No, but it's important. I don't know. It's our topic. It's fine. It's my own podcast, so we can do whatever we want. Maybe we'll find lots of vegans to complain to Pret, and they'll change the menu, and we're gonna solve our lives. There you go. We'll be doing the world a lot of good. No, I actually signed a petition once about the coriander thing. I am very involved in this cause.
Did you sign it or did you start the petition?
No, I signed it. No, I'm not that motivated. Yes. So this podcast now is for anyone who hates coriander, and if you like it, you have no room here. No, I'm kidding.
That's funny.
Diversity and inclusion, guys. Everyone can come. So wait. What do you think are the biggest challenges you've had so far in your music career? Was it just the meeting the right people, or is there anything that you wish you knew that you now know?
I think the biggest challenge was actually just deciding that I need to be in London. And people will argue that, you know, there's other opportunities elsewhere, and I do agree there is, especially in Manchester. Like one of the biggest promoters is in Manchester for the UK, but they're very it feels like you do need to know somebody in order to get in there, especially in, you know, where there's fewer opportunities. It becomes more and more competitive. So I did find it quite hard to just decide to just have to just change my life again and have to move to London when it wasn't something that I ever envisioned I would do. But now that I'm here, I love it. Like, I do love being here. Like, I met my girlfriend here, and I just love being here. Like, I think it's it can be a very big and lonely city if you allow it. But I think if you keep yourself busy enough and sort of take advantage of what it has to offer, it can be a really great place to be. But yeah, I do think that was the biggest challenge, was just to sort of prioritize and sacrifice everything that I've done so far and have to just, you know, sort of just drop it and start again, really.
Yeah, I think that's always difficult, moving and finding your place. And London can be very daunting as a city, even if you're from the UK, you know, and it's huge and it's complicated. It takes you time to get to places.
Yeah.
There's all the stuff about the area you live in. No one leaves their area on the weekends, etc. So very important to plan that wisely for anyone coming.
Yeah.
But that's great, Raven. But so you've worked really hard so far to get to where you've been.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is the best networking tip you have so far to give to someone who is, you know, in this industry? Or maybe not. I think the skills are translatable, but I agree with you that the music industry is perhaps one that you really need to know people to move around.
Yeah. I don't know if I've got any tips, but I'd say that because I wouldn't even say that I'm very good at it. Anyway, that's another thing. We don't need to talk about that. But I think that as long as you're yourself and just don't try too hard, like, just, you know, let conversations naturally happen. And if it's not happening, like, don't work too hard at it. Just move on. Like, if someone's not showing you any attention and just seems as though they're not interested, don't waste your efforts on it. Go and speak to somebody who'll listen. Yeah, that's probably the only thing I'd know.
I love that. It's a lot about like conserving your energy. And I think I agree with you. I think a lot of networking, at least in music, let's make it specific this time, is being in places and being available, right? So it's what you said, it's going to gigs, it's going to events. Yeah. And I think now that it's online, it's also trying to find these communities of people. So like Women Connect, like us, like other communities that exist out there, Women in Control, to be around and to meet people and actually just reaching out and saying hi, because a lot of people are actually welcoming to that. I know it's a hard business, and Alex said something on her interview which was funny, which was something around like, if you want loyalty, you should get a dog.
Oh my god, I can't believe she said that. That's what my boss says. Oh my god, I can't wait to pull her up on that. That is so funny.
Yeah, and I think it is true. Like, you can get along with people, but you can't expect everyone to be like loyal to you or your best friend, because those, you know, as much as there's not a lot of lines between work and life when you have this sort of profession, you still need to kind of understand who you trust and who you don't trust with your energy. So I think that's actually a really good point.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll send you the link to her podcast afterwards, so you can take a look and you can joke on her about it. But Raven, so how has it been this year for you working without live music? What has been the most challenging, besides, you know, not having concerts, and have you learned anything new from it?
To be honest, it has been really challenging, because it's stuff that, I mean, I had a Goldfrapp tour that was ready to go in March this year. It was supposed to start at the end of March, and I just postponed it for a full year to 2021. But I mean, that scramble for dates when everything was cancelling and, you know, shows were due to take place in the next day, that scramble at the beginning was so stressful. I mean, it still is now. Most venues are totally roadblocked until sort of the end of 2022. We're now working 2 years in advance because we've just lost a year. So I think that's been like a real big struggle, is to just basically pick up tours and find a place for them elsewhere, which isn't as easy as you'd think when everyone's trying to do the same thing. But yeah, and for me, I think it's made it easier to be a bit more spontaneous, because that's something that I do struggle with. I'm quite an organised person, and I sort of like to know where I'm going every week. And, you know, even if I've got 2 or 3 gigs in one night, I like to know what order I'm going in them and what time I need to be at certain places. And, you know, just having that all removed and not being able to tell, like, no one knows what they're doing next week, because no one knows what the situation is going to be nationally. So I think with that, it's definitely made me, you know, sort of not cling on to plans and organise things as well, which is all a good thing, but it's good to have some spontaneity as well. So that's one thing that's one positive thing I'm going to try and take away from this.
That's super interesting. I don't think anyone answered that yet when I asked this question. Raven, I really appreciate your coming. I know it's late, so I'm going to start wrapping it up.
Thanks for having me.
You know, one thing that I ask people is, not all the time, because sometimes I get carried away and I forget, because I'm a very good interviewer, but it's about tips. I was going to ask you about if you had 3 artists you'd like to recommend, but I'm going to make it a bit more broad, because we're all on lockdown at the moment. And even though this episode is going to hopefully come out at a moment where there's no more lockdown, I don't know. But so I'm going to be super, how can I say this, selfish right now, and just ask you if there are any, you could give 3 or 5 or 10 or 1, you decide, things you recommend people to watch or see or listen at this time that you are enjoying or you think people should know about. That they can enjoy ideally from their houses, but it can be something that when people can go out again, they can go see. I'll allow it.
Okay. I'll speak from the present and say that I did buy the entire box set of the OC, and I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it was something that just passed me by when I was younger. So I have started just streaming the OC from beginning to end again, which I've been enjoying. It's very nostalgic and it feels good to revisit those times of flip phones and etc. But in terms of going to see stuff, I mean, there's so much content that's come out from different artists, and new artists are emerging, and artists are exploring different areas that they've not done before because they've got so much more time on their hands. There's definitely some exciting people. I'll just name like 3 people that I cannot stop listening to that are sort of up and coming.
Yeah, do it.
Okay, so I'll tell you what, I'll name 3 songs that I can't stop listening to at the moment. Okay, so there's a girl called Phoebe Green. She has a song called Reinvent, and it is such a bop, I can't stop listening to it. There's an Irish girl called FA, who she just released an EP, and it is just unreal. You should go and listen to it. It's EFE. And then another band called Drugstore Romeos. They're very good, very boppy as well. And yeah, that's they're my tips, they're my tip-offs.
I love that. I love that band name, Drugstore Romeos. And I totally remember the OC. I have a sister who's 1 year older than me, and she was absolutely obsessed with the OC. Even when, I don't know in which season you are, at one point it becomes pretty bad, and she couldn't stop, watching. And she is very prone to crying with anything like commercials, soap operas. Like she cries, you know.
That's so funny because I cried at an episode last night.
Yeah, well, she cried every time. It's so good. Maybe you guys should be friends. She used to like cry when Aladdin says goodbye to the genie when Genie goes to Disneyland in the end of the movie.
Oh, really? I used to cry at Fox and the Hound.
But that's a lot sadder, no? I don't remember it very much.
But I can't remember Aladdin. I need to rewatch it.
No, but she's great at crying. It's one of her best skills, I think. Like one time when we were kids, we watched halfway the E.T. movie because it was on TV. Yeah. And then she's like, oh, let's watch from the beginning. So we got our DVD at the time and watched, and she cried at the exact same moment that she had just cried. I was like, just saw this scene. Surely you were prepared, but she was not.
She's in touch with her emotions.
She's very touched sometimes with her emotions, but yes. She's gonna kill me that I'm making fun of her. I made fun of her lots of times already on this podcast. I cut some of those, but yeah.
Just cut it out.
It's what I do. But yeah, that's incredible. I hope you're enjoying the OC, and I really like the music tips. And Raven, I'm super excited to be talking to you. Thank you so much for supporting I Like Networking from the start.
Yeah, always.
I always recommend everyone to join Women Connect. Such an amazing group, and you get a lot of great tips online, and you can send, jobs and recommendations and everything. And it seems to be a really great community that you are all building. So I'm super excited to be a part of it and to be promoting it. And I'm sure you're going to do amazing things in music. And in the meantime, I hope you stay sane and well. And, we all miss concerts. So let us know when you start promoting some new stuff that we can actually go to, hopefully in 2021.
Yes.
So before you go, Raven, I don't know if this is your first podcast.
I've done one before.
Okay. But I also don't know if you ever did this, but since you work with talent, I'm going to ask you, is there one question that either you want people to ask you always and they never do, or if you could be a journalist, you would ask every single talent you met?
I like asking talent what's the brattiest thing on their riders. I think that it's quite telling, isn't it? But the people that I've been able to ask are like quite humbled and up and coming, so that none of them are like pushing the boundaries on their riders yet. But,
did you ever have really challenging riders to deal with?
I personally don't deal with them, but I do like hearing about them. There was one, I can't even say the artist, but there was a Wembley Arena show last year, and I went in the dressing room because I was sorting out some CDs that he'd signed for some guests that were coming. And the way that, like when you sit in front of a mirror and you sort of have your bits everywhere, where things are. So, your hairbrush is there and, your gel's there and all this stuff. He had everything so well organised. Like it all had a specific spot. And someone mentioned that if one thing was just out of place, like he'd just totally lose his shit. Like, I was like, that is insane. Like, that you can't live like that. You just can't live like that. If somebody's picked up a hairbrush or a comb and put it down at a slightly wrong angle, that is going to inflict no pain on you whatsoever. We need to just move on from that. That's probably the only thing I can think of.
That's amazing. I had once to do one, and they asked for extra large condom sizes, condoms. And I was like, and it was not one package. I think they had ordered like 50 packages, and I was like, surely you're not going to use 50
Were they
packages.
Blowing them up?
Yeah, I don't know what they wanted to do. And one time, I also can't tell the name of the artist, which is going to get me in trouble, but someone asked for drugs, and I was like, sorry, I can't organize this. You have to speak to my manager at the time, because obviously. But yeah, I feel like most of the bigger sort of acts I met were actually pretty chilled. One of them asked for like fresh coconut water, which was pretty easy to find because I was in Brazil, so not a problem at the time.
Might be a bigger problem in the middle of London.
Yeah, and then one person asked me if there was a place that they could go smoke weed.
That is such a regular. That's a common.
That's a common writer request.
Yeah.
No, but it's funny. We could talk about that. I'll tell you who the artists are later, off the record.
Okay, all right.
But that's amazing, Raven. Again, thanks so much for being a part of I Like Networking, and I'll talk to you again sometime soon.
Definitely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the I Like Networking podcast. Please remember to share, subscribe, and review the podcast so that more people can find us. All the information discussed on this episode will be on the show notes. See you next time.